Eye-opener for April 7th, 2026. What is the more immediate threat? For decades now, American leadership has told their citizens about the ever-present and looming threat of terrorism. While not the only threat that American leadership has discussed over that same time frame, terrorism seems to be the only one that same American leadership has actually done something about, at least in a substantive manner. We've all heard about America's failing infrastructure, yet our leadership, at least on the national stage, seems very reticent to actually do anything about that fact. We've all heard about how climate change will ruin the planet, while the loudest voices supposedly attempting to mitigate or stop climate change fly around in private jets and have carbon footprints that are much more vast than the average American. And then there's homelessness. It seems to me that a policy could have been put forth where corporations and the ultra-wealthy could not drive housing prices up to the point where average American citizens could not afford a new home, or a home at all, as is becoming the case for more and more Americans day by day. Drug addiction. Yet another one of the things that our leadership talks about, but rarely seems to do anything substantial to truly put an end to. When America goes to war against Afghanistan for the acts committed on 9/11, and it seized the poppy fields in that nation from where 70% of the opium in the world comes, as America goes through an opioid epidemic that kills the same number of Americans annually that the Vietnam War took to kill in 10 years. It feels like America's leaders don't really have Americans' best interests at heart, unless those Americans happen to also be the wealthiest. When American leaders brag about the stellar economy that they've created, but only cite examples like cheap gas prices and soaring stock prices, it feels like those leaders are citing very shallow statistics to make their case. For while cheap gas prices may sound good to most Americans, those cheap gas prices, something that isn't even the case due to Trump's moronic war in Iran these days, are most likely due to the fact that gas companies in America are subsidized through rebates and loopholes for which the American taxpayer must compensate by paying higher taxes. And as for those stocks on Wall Street that our leaders brag about, how is this a boon for the majority of us when only 10% of the American population owns 80 to 90% of those stocks? In other words, a skyrocketing Dow Jones only means that a minority of this nation is actually making life-changing wealth, at least as far as Wall Street is concerned. Of course, there are smaller issues that one must look at. Things like the way amenities seem to disappear or have disappeared over the years. While amenities may not seem that important, they do indicate a downward spiral in regards to the American dream. They indicate just one way that American leadership is failing Americans. In South Florida, where I am from, our leaders seem to tax us exorbitantly for the sun, the ocean, and the good weather, but provide little else for our tax dollars. Because the things that make the weekend worth living for have mostly vanished over the decades. Anecdotally, any inhabitants of Miami who have been here for at least 2 or 3 decades can look at a weekly magazine called The New Times, which detailed and provided a calendar for all of the activities available in the city. Where this weekly periodical was once approximately 100 pages, it is now only 15 to 20 pages at most, and is now much smaller in dimensions. This change in Miami is what I mean when I say that money coming into a thing is good, but too much money coming into a thing ruins it. I won't go into a long list of examples here, but I will cite one. South Beach used to be a pretty bad neighborhood. Then it became a place where one could find a lot of activities in which to partake. Then it became a place where only the rich could comfortably afford to go. For now, I will leave you to your own examples of too much money ruining a good thing. Let's instead consider the threats that American leadership continually put out there. Let's consider the fact that of all the foreign nations that America claims to be a threat to American citizens, the biggest threat seems to be the one coming from within. When a third of your nation faces insecurities and 10% of your nation is becoming impoverished, how could terrorists or supposed terrorists in the Middle East be the biggest threat to your survival? When rising property taxes due to corporations like BlackRock are driving up the cost of housing, how could Iran threatening Israel be your biggest concern? When corporate pharmaceutical companies provide the opioids that are killing your fellow citizens at a rate that surpasses one of America's longest wars annually, how could Venezuela be a bigger threat? America needs to wake up. America needs to be more analytical. America needs to open its eyes so that it can differentiate between what its leaders say and do and what Americans see in reality. This was what Chris Osman sought to do when he wrote his book Solutions: Enough Complaining, Let's Fix America, which provides a means for Americans and people around the world to separate the facts of life from the fictions their leaders try to sell them. For solutions to the biggest issues we all face today, pick up your copy of Chris Osman's book Solutions: Enough Complaining, Let's Fix America at Amazon.com. And for more videos like this and those that ask the questions that need to be asked, search for Surreal News on Rumble.com or check out the YouTube channel by Chris Osman. Just search CHRIS space OSSMAN with the term Daily Eye Openers and find out why there are more and more conspiracies and fewer conspiracy theories in the world today. And while you're there, please like the videos and subscribe to the YouTube channel so Chris can continue posting these truths.